Hey, it's Damon. I'm taking a moment to forewarn you that this episode is intense and has many themes of child abuse, severe neglect, and trauma throughout. Normally, I would warn you with a timestamp for triggering moments, but Nisha's life story offers few safe spaces, so this is your full warning. It was emotional for her to come here and share, and if you know me at all, you know that it was emotional for me too. However, in telling her full story, Nisha shows exemplary strength and resolve to move forward with her life despite her past. If she could come here and tell it as she lived it, then you can also have strength as you listen, learn, and empathize with another adoptee who opened up the full details of what she's endured to build herself up to who she is today. I hope you're ready. Let's go.
We will never speak again. I just didn't like her. I went from loving her to like not liking her at all. And it's funny because as a child, it was the exact same thing. I loved her obviously when I was born, but once I got into toddler years, I didn't like her. I read about that in my file, right? Like I read that. I did not want to go to visits with her. I did not like her.
Who am I?
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 This is Who Am I, Really? A podcast about adoptees that have located and connected with their biological family members. I'm Damon Davis, and you're about to meet Neshia from outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Nisha's birth mother, who lived the street life, exposed her children to the full dark side of the choices she was making back then. Neshia credits one amazing foster family with showing her what a normal life as a child should be, but it was short-lived. Transplanted from the city into a rural, transracial adoption, she was cast out as a teen and trauma cycles repeated themselves. But today, Neshia is doing her best to be a mom to her own children, focusing on the glimmers of hope in her life. This is Neshia's journey. I've often said that adoption never starts from a good place, and Neshia's childhood is a stark example of what I mean. Neshia is the older of two half-sisters, born just under a year apart from each other on her maternal side. They may be technically half-siblings, but Neshia made it clear, with love in her voice, that they are sisters. I asked her to take me back to her childhood to share her earliest memories. Neshia told me that what she describes are flashes of memories. She was exposed to horrible things as a young girl, and as a result, Neshia was extracted from her birth mother's care.
I was so young that it's like I can barely see them, but they're there. It's almost like I can barely make it out. I know that sounds so strange. For an example, it would be I would remember showering with my sister, and this lady would be in the shower, and I could visualize the shower, but I could not really visualize like if it was in an apartment or if it was in a house or who the woman was in the shower. I remember being like by a Burger King and there being a homeless lady at the corner there. And I actually remember her giving my sister and I pencils. And I couldn't figure out if that was like a real memory. And it came to me later on in life that it was actually a real memory, but I couldn't determine like throughout my life if those were actual memories that I had, or sometimes we romanticize things as adoptees and stuff. Yeah, so I wasn't sure if maybe I was like, my brain had created this to make me feel safe, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall how old you were when you were transitioned away from your mother's care? Do you have any memory of that?
I do. My earliest memory that I have is actually probably the best memory of my whole childhood is we were placed with a family. We were adopted together. We were separated and then placed back with my mom and then separated and then placed back with our biological mom. and then separated for a while in foster care again until we could finally be placed back together in hopes that we would be adopted together.
And do
So,
you recall what it felt like to go through these transitions from your mom back to your mom, from your mom back to your mom?
so I don't remember it, but I do remember the effects that it had on me. I know that sounds so. I think when what I was going through as a child, that my body, because I had been through so much, that my body just kind of took me to like my brain took me to like another place so that I wouldn't be like actually think of like where my body was. So backstory, my mom was a prostitute, and my mom for some reason had extremely low self-esteem. She used to search for love in the wrong places, and she was a white woman, and she romanticized and fetished having Black children.
Mm.
So much so that she was very disappointed when I was born because I was so fair-skinned. My biological father is Trini and Jamaican, and they tend to be more fair skin color skin tone because of like the Trini side. And my mom was, I guess, highly disappointed about that. And because of that, she took that out on me in a variety of ways, from what I hear. And so yeah, there was just like a lot of things that was happening at that time that caused for us to be apprehended from my mom and placed in that foster home that was actually so lovely. Probably the best place that my sister and I ever lived. We loved them very much. I remember visiting our mom in that foster home, which I guess is what your initial question was. I remember her like going for visits with this lady and being really just uncomfortable by like her smell.
Mm. Being
Like,
around her was
yeah,
triggering to you.
yeah, like I would
Oh.
get very upset as a child, and I can actually still smell it right now when we're talking.
Mm.
Um, it just, for some reason, I did not want to be around this person.
Mm.
And the visits eventually just stopped. And I don't ever really remember noticing that she was gone. We stopped seeing her like that. It was such a transition that it was designed for us to forget.
Interesting. When
It
I want to
was,
come back to that for a minute.
sure.
So you and your younger sister are both transitioned into foster care together, and you said this was one of the best places that the two of you ever lived. Why was it so special?
So, the reason why I say that is because our biological mom, like I said, she was a prostitute. She chose to hang around with not the greatest of people, and those people were around us a lot of the time. Well, these people were partying and doing drugs, and we were left alone a lot of the time. Police were constantly being called. Infants were left home alone. People could hear babies screaming. They would come for us, and we would be covered in piss and shit. No
Mm.
clothes, broken windows. One time, razor blades were found in my sister's bed, like her
Mm.
crib. People were throwing razor blades in there after cutting up cocaine, and she ended up cutting herself all over her face. My sister was found outside at like 3 o'clock in the morning. She was 2 years old. She was found by a civilian and brought to the police. I was sexually abused by, well, it's later come to find out that we think that she was selling me. There was two people that would have certain dates with me every week where they would bring me down to like a condo, and nobody would ever know why this would happen or why these men would be bringing me to this place. And there was people that would say that we would come and we would sit with you and your sister and try to bring you guys out just to get you guys away from everything going on. My sister and I were exposed to pornography from an extremely young age. I guess we would be made to sit and watch that with men that would babysit us. It's very strange inappropriateness, like around children. And then we were moved to foster homes for these phone calls, like when these things would be reported and stuff. And we would be moved to foster homes, and the same thing would happen in foster homes, very abusive. My sister would have her hands and her legs tied together, and she'd be put in the room, and I would have there would be a foster brother who would like poke and pry at me and shove objects in me. And I've read police reports about it, and just a lot of doctors' reports. As a young child, I was tested for STDs 3 times. Just a lot of unsettling environments that we were in.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
you've learned these things through the reports and your unredacted records that you've received?
Yeah, so I always knew that something had happened to me growing up, just because I'm very like hyper aware. I can like sense and read people very easily. I know when something's unsafe, like immediately. And I knew that being through a lot of things in my life had created that, but I always knew that there was some sort of component around men that really just made me feel so weak and afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And it took years of therapy and getting my file to really understand why that was. Like, so I never knew what happened, but like I just knew that I always had this crippling fear.
I'm so sorry. And I hope that through the therapy, you have been able to grasp that this wasn't about you and your sister. This was about your birth mother.
Yeah.
While it was directed at you, it was not you as a person. And I'm hopeful that you are able to hold on to that.
Yeah, I'm angry now. I think I'm at
Yeah.
this stage that I'm at, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to search for these answers, and the reunification part of it was just, there was a lot of pieces and layers, which I know there are with all of our stories. All of our stories are so unique. And I am in therapy, but I will say is that you and Sarah and Louise have really just got me so far.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Grateful to you guys.
I'm really glad you found us, honestly. This is something that another guest was telling me. She was a late discovery adoptee, and she was, how jarring that is. You've listened to the shows, and she was saying that she hopes other late discovery adoptees will find the community sooner so that you can start to hear these stories, not feel so alone. So I'm really glad that you've found these stories. And I'm going to
Yeah.
see Sarah and Louise this weekend. So they're going to be coming here to
Saw
DC.
that. I work a lot, and I'm a mom, right? I got 4 of my own. So like I'm
Yeah.
always trying to walk from the sideline. Always got support, something going on. So I do follow you guys. I do pay attention, and I'm so excited, yeah, for that. day
Excellent,
by
excellent,
day.
excellent. Well, we'll be thinking about you this weekend. So,
I will agree with her that I wish for all of us, like this community has helped, like you guys, I really found you guys in the most depths of my despair. You know, when I had received my file, I know a lot of people receive their redacted files and they're like, oh, we only got a couple pages. Mine was over 6,000 pages. I
oh my
still have,
God.
yeah, I still have not even been able to break it all down because I hyper fixated on it when I first got it and I could not stop reading.
6,000 pages of reporting on two little girls. Neshia said she could not stop reading their file. She had developed a hypersensitivity to situations and a careful approach to being around men. And with each page she consumed, the foundation of all of Nisha's trauma responses were described in detail by the police and social workers who interacted with her family over the years. You may have heard Neshia and her sister were placed in a foster home that gave her some of the best memories of her childhood. I asked Neshia to go back to when she was 5 years old to share why that point in their lives was so.
Just amazing, amazing, amazing people. So we were described as feral when we went into their care. We were quite literally like animals. We had no broatopsy, as my West Indian background would call that. We had
What does
no,
that mean?
it means that there was no essentially law and order, right? There was no structure, there was no stability, there was no routine, there was just nothing. We were running, I was eating, drinking pop out of a soda can, you know what I mean? Like there was
Hmm.
just no sense of normalcy at all. And
Hmm.
so when we came into that foster home, we were just two
Without rules,
kids
without
from the
guidance.
jungle, you know, that just had been brought into society, and we did not know how to act.
I realized what you were saying was brought up C.
Yes.
I picked up. My wife is West
Yeah.
Indian, so I picked up what you were saying.
That's why I said it, because I remember
Yeah,
hearing that in your
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But
So yeah, when you raise a child properly, there is guidance from the very start, right?
yeah,
And you have children and you've had times when even just the littlest things, when they're small and they are unhappy with you and they're in your arms and they'll swat at your face and you'll look at them and say, you don't do that, right?
exactly,
There's
exactly.
every little moment of guidance along the way, right? You see them on the playground and they hit another child and you catch them and you say, you don't do that. Or you teach them, you're there with your brother or sister and there's some extra food and you say, give your brother one, give your sister one. And I presume you were not going to any kind of schooling. There's also some things that come with the socialization of being around other
We had
children
barely been
and other
outside.
teachers. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
I could see, I'm just trying to paint the picture of every little moment that happens with proper adult parenting and guidance in a child's life. It happens thousands of times a day, probably. And you and your sister were getting none, literally zero. So I
None.
could see how entering foster care, you would have very much been like children from a jungle. And it was an urban jungle, unfortunately.
Literally, quite
Unreal.
literally.
Wow.
It broke my heart to read us described as that,
Yeah.
but it also put things into context in the exact way that I needed to hear it,
Hmm.
because I mean, it gives like a perspective to the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, they loved us back. They loved us, like they loved us into life, not back to life because we never really had much of a life. But yeah, they loved life into us, quite
Wow.
literally. They took care of us. We started going to church. We started going to preschool. Like we were playing outside. I had a
Wow.
bike. I had friends. I remember running through the backyards of people, and I remember being out until the street lights were on, and I just I remember joy. It was joy. And I wish that for everyone to experience that, because a lot of people in life, they really never experience that. And so those memories from my childhood, I hang on to them, and I have hung on to them so tight because it was really the only time that I had that I was able to feel free and be a child, and I felt loved, and my literal name was Princess. Like, I called them mom and dad. We had siblings, and we were,
There was food and a bed
yes,
and
we had,
care. Yeah.
yes, we had a dog. Like, there was a home and Christmas time, and
Wow.
there was there was memories, Damon,
Mhm.
like core memories.
Yeah.
And I think when I look back, and this is something that I've always felt, is I never really had those core memories, right? Like, a lot of my childhood, it's like blank. When people talk about TV shows, toys that they played with, like, I literally have to like think if I can remember. Like, I didn't know what Transformers were until I was an adult and had sons, and people are like, how?
Wow.
Like, well, when I didn't grow up like you at all. Like, I literally
Mhm.
had maybe 2.5 years of bliss, right? But like, I went from hell and then back into the depths of hell, you know? So it was
Mhm.
like that tiny time frame. But I'm so grateful to them because I don't think without, I'm just going to name them because I love them so much, the Witzels, I would have never probably survived. I would not be here to talk about this.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm
That
so glad you
they
are.
had such a profound impact
Yeah.
on our lives. Just, we were there for maybe 2.5, 3 years tops. And
Wow.
it was such a profound impact at just the right time of our lives.
Mhm.
Like, it seems like that time is such a young time and kids wouldn't remember, but it's actually such a crucial time, fundamental time of a child's brain developing their, those years from like 3 to 5, things just stick, right? It's
Yeah.
like a
There's a
slate.
lot coming in
Yeah,
right? There's a lot coming in from day 0 through to 2, but at
absolutely. Like,
2
they
to
used to
5,
say a blank slate, and like, that's not the case. We are
yeah.
not, that is not what it is at all. Like, there is things being ingrained in that slate that will be in that person for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And I
That's right.
really know that. Like, it's like, not to say that you have to be that, but like, those parts of you are ingrained. It
Yeah.
really is ingrained in you. And I'm so grateful to that family for just being who they were. Like, there was 5 members of that family. They had 3 children of their own. And let me tell you, we felt no different than their own children.
That's amazing.
Like, none.
Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that time from 2 to 5 and how much development happens there because you go from sort of barely being able to move when you're a toddler to being able to run, experience the world. Your linguistics
Absolutely.
have accelerated so
Complete.
you can express yourself and you can say what you want, what you don't want. And as you said, all of those little things that a lot of kids take for granted, having a bike, having a Christmas, pictures of yourselves, all of those things become, as you said, core memories. So I can imagine that time with the Wetzels was really, really powerful because also it then helped you to see what you had come from and
Yeah.
how awful it was. Now you have a
Yes.
comparator. And I've said this, you may have heard this on the show before. when you don't know what you don't know, you've got nothing to compare to. So if this
Yes.
is your life and it just sucks, you don't really realize how much it sucks because you've not seen the good side.
Right.
Now you've
Exactly.
got two types of lives to compare to. And even at 5 years old, I'm sure you could express, I don't want to go back to that
Oh
other
yeah.
version. And
Oh
if
yeah.
that other version comes in the next family, you can say, wait, this sucks again, right? So
Right.
that was important for you to have a baseline now to compare what life could be to what it had been. And it sounds like what it ended up
It
being.
absolutely did, which is also what shaped, yeah, my idea for the future, and that what was about to be unleashed on us, I knew was wrong and essentially a complete nightmare.
At the end of an amazing 2 years in foster care, when Nisha was about 7 years old, she and her sister were adopted by another family. They were a sibling set, mixed race, black girls, in foster care at an older age than many people were likely to adopt children. Any of those issues alone could reduce a child's chances for adoption. They had all of those factors in combination, making finding parents more difficult, so the process was rushed.
They found two people, and I guess the people were very interested in us, and the visits started, and I did not want to go with them. Before they even came, I wanted nothing to do with them. They told the CAS, which is Children's Aid Society in Canada, Child Welfare Services, they told us what would be happening and who was coming to visit, and we just wanted no parts of it. I think maybe I was a little bit more like curious, as I think given the way that we grew, I tended to somewhat try to be more grown. So I would be like, oh, we're having a meeting and I'm going to be at this meeting and I'm going to meet these people. Whereas my sister was more apprehensive, like I'm hiding under the bed and I'm not meeting nobody. Right.
Mhm.
So I met these people and I guess they seemed nice, like I was a kid, like I didn't know, but and like we would go and we would visit, we would go for visits with them. They would take us out for dinner. So now the transition to put us into this family is now starting. So how it's again designed the same way so that you're going to be in the family, right? So you go for visits, they come into the foster home, they have dinner, you go out for dinner with them, you go out into the community with them, then you're at their house having visits with your foster family, having dinner. Then you're at their house without the foster family, then you're having overnights. And then the reintegration process happens, well, not but like when you're moving in the kids into the home, I guess. And
Mhm. The separation and integration. Yeah.
yeah, and the talks were being had with us again because we were older. They did have to communicate stuff with us, right? We had questions, we wanted to know what was happening, like what's going on, those sorts of things. So then basically I decided that I did not like these people. And it was also a culture shock in the sense that they were very old. This was a transracial adoptee situation. And we were in the country. There was barrels of hay. We thought they were giant marshmallows in the fields. We had no idea what this was. There was no kids anywhere. There was just fields.
So
And
it's not
so
even like you're going to the neighbors. You've gone from the foster care place where you're playing in the streets with other kids in a bike,
lights
alone as
and
children on a farm in the country. Interesting. Wow.
yes. So I said I don't want to live with them, right? Like I don't want to go there. And the children's aid worker, and I'll leave her name out of this for respect, but we'll call her Sharon. At the time, Sharon said, "You're still going to be in contact with your foster family. Like your foster family is still going to be in your life." And I said, that's like forever. Like they're always going to be around us. We're always going to get to visit them. And the children's aid said, yes. The social worker promised that that was a part of the plan of care, essentially, right? Like it was absolutely imperative that these people be a part of this transition and moving on, as they were huge impact on our lives, positive impact of our lives. You know, we were very attached to them. And so we actually signed off on the adoption as like 7-year-olds.
It's unreal. The responsibility that is put on a child for their own future.
Oh, like, yeah, like they actually had to get our permission to be adopted. Like they could not legally adopt us without us giving our consent, given our age, right? Like we had to consent to that legally. And in order for us to consent to that, they told us that we would still be in their lives, the Witzel's lives. So that was a safety thing for us. And it didn't end like that.
They were gone. What was life like in their home then? So you're now there. It sounds like the Wetzels are no longer coming around. You were promised that they would be part of your lives, but you've been basically cut off. So what is family like for you?
So basically how I remember it to be is we would be there, going there, and then we were living there, and like it was just such a culture shock. I think my brain was just trying to really take in like that there was nothing, there was nobody, but I should be so grateful for these people who pasted this aerial border wallpaper on my wall and gave me this bedroom with a aerial blanket, you know? And I will say that all of that ended very fast. Once CAS was not coming around as much after the visit, after like we were placed there, like the placement itself, peculiar things started to happen. Like they brought out these cardboard boxes and they sat down in these chairs and they told my sister and I to empty these boxes. And we were like, hey, and they were little figurines and crystals of like, they were pewter figurines of like half men, half horse, and wizards and birds and just strange mystical creatures. And we would place them, they would tell us where to place these knickknacks. You know, they had all these empty shelves when we went there for visits and stuff. But basically, we were adopted from a Catholic Children's Aid Society to atheists.
I can't help thinking that as you're describing unpacking these boxes, that they had packed away the stuff to put their best foot forward so that when CAS comes around, they won't see these oddball things that they have. Now that the adoption is final, nobody's coming around. They're indoctrinating you into their life by asking you to unpack their boxes and refill their empty shelves. So they had put up the facade of normalcy, for lack of better words, and they were asking you to reestablish their way of life, and it's these mystical creatures and all of this. So what else happens in your home then?
So yeah, we would get left home again. I remember being at school. We got registered into a Catholic school because that was also one of the things that they were supposed to keep, is the religion that we had with our family previously, and it being that we came from Catholic Child and Family Services.
Uh-huh.
They wanted us to stay within the church and stuff, so they promised to keep us within that. They registered us in a Catholic school. And I remember there was a situation, I threw a sandwich in a bag on a bus, and then my sister threw it back at me, and it hit the bus driver in the head. So the school, we were suspended off of the school bus. And our adoptive parents came and picked us up from the school, and we were given a punishment of walking home from school in front of everybody while they drove behind us on the shoulder of the road in their car.
And in a rural community, one, that's hella embarrassing, but in a rural community, that's probably a long ass way home.
It was long, it was on a major highway, and it was our first humiliation
Oh my God. That is
tactic,
unreal.
if you will.
And
I
so
can
you,
still feel the kids watching me from the bus.
oh my gosh, that is insane.
It was in
So you
grade 1.
said that was your first humiliation tactic. It sounds like there was a whole suite of tactics that were levied against you and your sister.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Well,
So it was a lot of cruel and unusual punishments. We were put alarms on our doors. We were given a cocktail of pills every night before we went to bed. We were not allowed out of our rooms. Like if the alarm went off when the door opened, there would be severe consequences. We learned to pee in cups and stuff like that because the consequence would be so unbearable if the door opened that it was just better to like piss yourself or piss in a cup.
geez, that is unreal. That is unreal. So you were, not only were you geographically sequestered by everybody, from everybody by being on a farm, but inside the home, you are also imprisoned, right?
Yes,
Your movements are restricted. You're not allowed to move out of your room
literally.
overnight. I can't imagine that you were allowed to go out and play very much either.
No playing, chores. We were essentially brought on as slaves. They had 52 acres of land, and that's what our time was spent doing, is working that land.
So this is what one would think of as classic farm chores: the baling the hay, tending to animals, cultivating
Eating
crop.
chicken coops, feeding the animals. Like we would have to, I remember this paint bucket, those large paint buckets. I would have to fill those every morning with water and go and water the chickens and their ducks and all their animals and stuff. And I would get soaked. The pail so heavy. And I was such a young girl. I was like 8 years old, 9 years old. And
So you would have to do this before you went to school. And there in Canada, it's cold. You're wet, it's
it's very
cold, and then
cold.
you got to go stand at the bus.
Wait for the bus. Yeah. And
Oh my God.
yeah. I could, like, we lived on like a busy highway, right? So it's like I thought I could feel the people driving by, that they could see that I was like soaking wet and like freezing, but really they probably couldn't. But I was so embarrassed.
They probably could. I mean, I'm going to make a leap
Like,
here and imagine that, one, you're a child of color in that rural community, so you stood out anyway. And
very much.
because you stood out, they were staring an extra second, and they could probably say that child's soaking wet out there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So they probably did.
I mean, maybe they thought it was normal because we used to wet our hair in puddles because they would never give us like any hair products. So our
Mhm.
hair was constantly just like, and we would get made fun of at school. So we would be so when it would rain because we would get our hair wet in the puddle just to try to tame it, right? Because we were made fun of so much for our hair and our features. And my
Mhm.
sister's more brown skin like you yourself. So
Mhm.
my sister and I were also placed, like a wedge drove between us. So that was another tactic that they used to gain control. They saw that I was a little bit of a more sensitive out of these two siblings. And they used that as a means for my sister to start picking on me. And
Hmm.
then they would use things as a means for me to start picking on my sister. They started making us hate ourselves. We would try to like color, we would sit and try to essentially wash the black out of us. because, yeah, we were,
You're trying to be accepted and fit in and find
yeah.
fewer ways for people to separate you from the rest, from others. Wow.
Yeah, and like we would make fun of each other, right? Like I would make fun of my sister. I was more light-skinned than her, even though I hate that term, but just using it for people that might not understand as much, because I know we have a lot of different listeners. But yeah, colorism is a huge thing within the Black community, and they chose to use that as a tactic between my sister and I. And it's something I'm still mortified about
Hmm.
as a grown woman, even though it's nothing of how I am now. My children are Black. I'm very much consider myself a Black woman as well. And it took me a lot of time as like a mixed person to find my place in life and go where I'm accepted.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah, it took me a long time, but in my 20s, I was found, and
Mm.
but there was a lot of stuff that just happened in that home. We tried to kill ourselves from a very young age. I was constantly running away. There was just a lot of cruel stuff that happened. I have a lot of issues with the cold, being left outside. I was forgotten about before and had to be brought to the hospital. And that was another thing I'll say is we were brought to the hospital a lot for injuries in that home and were forced to lie.
Really? So they were physically abusive to you,
Yes.
such that you would have to be hospitalized, but they threatened you
Oh, yeah.
into lying about what had transpired.
Oh, yeah.
God.
I went
Mm.
in the hospital with such bad frostbite from being left outside for punishment in the winter. They forgot about me. And to this day, I cannot be in the cold.
Think about what Neshia just said. She was punished for something that she may or may not have done. The punishment was to be left outside in the cold in Canada, and she was forgotten outside. That instance and others have left Neshia with such a trauma response to the cold that she can't even stand outside for public transportation or do winter activities with her children because it makes her cry to even feel a whisk of cold on the back of her neck. She told me that she was supposed to make a snow angel with one of her kids last year, but she couldn't make it happen. Neshia also has a fear response when it comes to food. She spent a lot of time trying to get food when she and her sister were young. They used to steal food in school, and today she orders more food than she's actually going to eat because a scarcity mindset is deeply embedded from her past. Neshia said that whenever she and her sister tried to report what was happening in their home, like when they were taken to the hospital for care after abuse, they were labeled as manipulative because they had been through so much. It was easier to blame the children than to believe them.
Essentially, I was just never believed about anything.
Hmm. Wow.
I was just never believed about anything. I would report the abuse. I would run away. So by the time I turned 12, they said, you know what? We don't want her.
Really? So what happened then?
I was put back into foster care temporarily, and they kept extending it just like my biological mother would. And then they said, no, we don't want her back. And I was made a Crown Ward again for the second time in my life at
Crown ward
13.
meaning you were a ward of the state.
Yes, that's
Hmm.
what we call it here in Canada.
Uh-huh. I got you.
Mhm.
So at 13 years old, you're a crown ward, but your sister's still in this home.
Yeah. I felt so guilty. I couldn't do it no more. But you know what I thought? I thought that me leaving would save her. Like I had a plan, right? And it worked for me. So I thought that she would come along.
Yeah.
No, That's not what happened. I was still the liar. I was still the problem child. I was still this. I was still that. And essentially, we were separated again.
Mm.
And we had to like pass letters through kids on different buses so that we could even communicate with each other because we were not allowed to communicate without their permission.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That must have been crazy. That's
It,
I will say that's amazing that you figured out that you could do that. That's some real, but you know what that
yeah,
also is
we become resourceful people, that's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And I can't help thinking that this is the kind of thing that prisoners do in jail. They figure
Literally,
out,
it's
like, it might not
essentially the
be
same as
actual
sending
Morse
a kite.
code.
Yep,
Yeah, but they will figure out how to tap into and send signals, and they'll figure out how to insert messages into another object such that it could be received somewhere else.
absolutely,
That's basically what y'all
absolutely.
did is your minds were incarcerated and you were sequestered from each other and you still found a way. That it's really awesome that you all were smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah,
Nisha was back in foster care, but this time as a Crown ward. She was moved to a completely different part of the same rural community, so there still wasn't any ethnic mirroring for her to see herself among others. Nisha began acting out, smoking weed, and acting more grown than her age, while trying to sort out why everyone else was, quote, normal, to use her words. Her teen years were a vulnerable time, and she had mostly known a life of abuse and neglect, and she was navigating without her sister. That part of Canada was growing scarce in foster care parents to take care of children like Nisha. So the Children's Aid Society created a pilot extended care maintenance program so that children who could not be placed could begin living independently. She was too young for the program, but because there was nowhere for Nisha to go, she was placed in the program at 15 years old.
and that is how I got my very first apartment at 15 years old, and was living on my own
Mm, mm,
at
mm.
15.
What was that like at 15 years old? I mean, an apartment has a lot of responsibility. It's
It
plumbing and groceries and getting yourself up in a timely manner to get to where you need to be, finish school or go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, at 15, that's a lot. Tell me how that was for you.
I was working at Tim Hortons and
Mhm.
I was going to school.
Tim Hortons is a restaurant.
Tim Hortons is like a infamous coffee place in Canada.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
our Starbucks.
Oh, gotcha.
Timmy's.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was working at a coffee shop and I was going to school and living on my own, and I had the party spot. I had the spot where all the kids would come, and I had the after school spot, I had the weekend spot, and essentially it was the flop house.
Really? You, I'm thinking of two things. One, you had the independence and freedom to do what the hell you wanted to do. But two, you also sounds like mimicked what you knew when you were a kid, whether you knew it or not.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow.
It's absolutely insane how that just unfolded like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was quite a harsh pill for me to swallow after I got the file and knew that, right? Like I was like, wow. So yeah, essentially I was going down my birth mom's path.
Mhm.
I was, even though it's so crazy. And I literally did go down her path. I dropped out of school. I started hanging around with bad people. The prostitution part of it was left out of it. However, I was being sexually active with a man that was significantly older than me, right? Like I
Mhm.
should not have, he was 27 years old and I was 16 years old.
Yeah. But that's predatory on his part.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I ended up getting pregnant. I had my first son at 18. And I mean, given that I was a Crown ward, CAS came and said, we're going to have to take this baby.
So they will put you out there to be independent and live on your own. And when you live on your own as an adult and do adult things, one of them being getting pregnant, they then swoop in and because you're a ward of theirs, take your child.
Yeah, essentially, it was the reasons were given that I did not have a support system, meaning a family, and they had concerns about my upbringing and me being a mother, and yeah, that I was a crime lord.
What did you think of that? That they could just come and take your child,
I
that
was
you didn't
terrified.
have resources, but that you were set up to not have resources?
So I don't think that I comprehended it like that at that age. I think I was just terrified. Well, I will say I was so fixated on having my baby because I wanted to meet a family member of mine besides my sister, right? My sister and I don't necessarily look alike. So I wanted to see somebody who looked like me.
Mhm.
I'm so embarrassed to admit that, but I really need for the community to understand what that means. Like I probably wouldn't have had that baby. And I
But you
love him very much. He's my
yeah,
firstborn. That's my everything. Like,
that's
but
your dude, yeah.
essentially that was I had him for selfish reasons. Therapy to admit that and understand that. But I love him very much. I want everybody to know that. But I had him because I wanted to see what he would look like. I wanted to meet a family member of mine.
Yeah,
And I
right.
wanted to have my family.
You wanted to care for him.
I wanted to be a mom from a young age.
Why?
Oh no, I honestly, when I think back, and like I even talked about it like a lot. Like I wanted to be a mom so bad.
I asked why, not to provoke you, but I was thinking about the fact that your own biological mother had not served you well. Your adoptive mother had not served you well. So I was curious what it was that was attractive about
Maybe,
motherhood.
yeah, maybe. I never. As I'm talking, I'm like taking a mental note of therapy this week because I'm like gonna bring that up this week because I actually am like I don't know that I brought this part up in therapy, but it's yeah I think that I would like to understand. Is why I was I knew I was gonna be a young mom and I wanted I knew I felt like that for a variety of reasons. I just to pinpoint one, yeah, I wanted to be cared for. I wanted to know what it was like. Like I really had no idea what it was like to be normal and like be a
Mm,
member of a family.
mhm.
And I was desperate for that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow.
So
So
yeah.
at 18, your child is taken from you. I presume your son was placed into foster care?
Yes, they showed up with the police at the hospital
Oh my god.
and told me that either I sign a temporary care agreement for 3 months or they would be apprehending him, and that's why the police was there. And I was alone, obviously, and I felt cornered, and I essentially signed the paper because I knew that if they apprehended him, that the chances of me getting him back were not likely.
Wow. So
Easier
they
to do a temporary care agreement than it is to do a court order.
so the temporary care agreement suggested that this was not an extended period of time, and then if you demonstrated you could get yourself together, he would be returned to you.
Yeah.
I got you. Were you able
Essentially,
to do
I
that?
was together, right? Like I had an apartment, I was on my own. Like there was really no reason for them to take him. A part of me thinks because I know how budgeting and stuff like that works out here with the ministry, right? So I almost think that because your
Yeah.
funding gets determined out here based off of how many kids are in.
What I heard you
Okay.
say was your suspicion is that the funding for the state is derived by the need and the number of kids in the system. So
Yes.
basically, by adding your son plus one to their count, they
Yes.
could justify their funding needs.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And this is you can imagine how many kids they do this with. Like this is how
Yeah,
they get their funding,
true.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I know this because of got whistleblowers out here, and I'm doing my own projects out here, which we'll talk about another time. But like, yeah, so I know these things now. Back then I did not, but that's essentially, I believe, why that happened. But I will say that I had my son home before those 3 months.
That's
So
amazing.
their temporary care agreement that they came with,
Hmm.
I had revised that to my terms.
Really? Well
Yes.
done. Way to
On the
self-advocate. That's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep. And they, with the police being there, they had no choice but to agree to that.
That's really, really fantastic. Good for you for
Resourceful.
fighting. Yeah, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well
Once you get
done.
cornered so much in your life, you learn to advocate for yourself, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bet you do. Yeah, you get backed into a corner and you start to look for every single angle through which to get out of it. I
Yeah.
can imagine.
So that was re-traumatizing for me with my son. I'm on the other side of things.
Right.
I'm now a birth mom who has a child that's been apprehended, and I understand that some mom respectfully like relinquish their rights, so I don't mean to like cause pain to anybody
Yeah.
by me using that term
Yes.
apprehension. My
But
son
that's
was
the fact of what
apprehended
happened
from
to
me.
you.
Exactly. That's
Yeah. We gotta call a spade a spade.
exactly. So I saw him every day. That was my terms, that I saw him
Mhm.
every single day. I didn't care how they figured it out, but they must figure it out. If they were taking him from me, that they must figure out how they was going to see my son every day.
That's great.
But the pain of that was excruciating for me because
Mhm.
I was trying to breastfeed my son and I was unable to do so because he wasn't with me and I couldn't
Yeah.
feed and I didn't understand that I had to pump, right? Like nobody taught me or told me that. And so there was a lot of things happening that I didn't have help with to know, but I was also experiencing postpartum. I was severely depressed. When they would take my son from me from the visits, I would be screaming and crying on the floor.
Mhm.
It was the most unbearable thing I've been through in my entire life.
Yeah. This is
Truly,
a baby that you've carried who is now daily being taken from you.
every day. I have to
And
go through this every single day
yeah,
until he comes back. Yeah.
it's compounded also by your own lived experiences, right? That
I was
you have
terrified.
gone through all of these other things, and now you have the compounded issue of the daily removal of your infant son, whom you very much love.
Psychologically as well, like I
Yeah.
felt like my birth mom. Like I felt guilty.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a lot on my mental.
Becoming a mother was Nisha's motivation to find her own mother. Back then, she got a phone book and started looking up everyone with her last name. But in those days, every call had long distance fees, so the process of calling all those people incurred big costs. To make it all work, she was putting phone plans in bogus names, setting up ghost lines, and running up credit card charges. But her search didn't return anyone who knew her mother. Nisha gave up her search. Then she got pregnant with her second son. The proliferation of social media presented a new opportunity to search, so she began looking for her birth mother's name online. The first person Neshia messaged didn't even have a profile picture with a face, just a body painted image of an Aquarius symbol. It was late at night, but Neshia thought it was worth starting to message people.
Well, it just happened to be her that I messaged.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Hey, I'm searching for a family member of mine, and I'm just wondering if maybe you're her." And she said, "Do you have a sister?" And I knew immediately it was her. And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Is her name?" And she said, "My sister's name." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I'm your mother."
Oh my gosh. What did you think when you saw that message?
I believe I was elated at the time, but I was also in utter shock. Like it's happening. It's finally happening. Like this person that I've made up these stories about my whole life Because like I never really talked about my dad. Like the idea, I never really, it was always about her. It was shocking. It was very shocking for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. But then I was like, and like, believe it. And I'm calling my sister and she's like, are you sure? And everybody's like, are you sure? And people can be sick out there. But I'm like, no, like, I know it is. Like, how would she know
All
to
right.
ask me that? Like,
Yeah.
stop trying to invalidate this. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
people trying to water down my experience, and
Yeah.
not believe me again. It's such a familiar feeling is never being believed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just believed myself as I always do. And I went on with it and I continued to communicate with her. And then I asked about my brother because I knew that I had a brother from her. I
Oh.
had a picture of him my whole life.
Oh.
And I said, do you know where my brother is? And she said, yeah, he's right here with me. And so that was like another thing that was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, so why didn't I get to stay? Like, like there was like a whole other. So I think that's another thing that I'll say with reunification is people, we have this idea of how it's going to be, but we really have no idea what's on the other side of that
Oh
door,
no.
where the
No.
turns and that there could be even another door.
Is your brother older or younger than you and your sister?
He's 5 years younger than me. So he used to come to the visits. So what they left him with her and knew that she had him.
So he
And
would have been like an infant,
yes,
and they left him with her.
yes.
Whoa. That is wild. Neshia and her birth mother created a plan to meet up for their reunion. Neshia had 2 small children at the time, and her sister lived somewhat close by, so it was easier for their birth mother to travel to Neshia. I asked about how she was feeling going into meeting her birth mother after so many years apart. You.
Excited. I was
Yeah.
so excited. I wanted to I had my mom. I have like there's a
Mm.
parent. Like there's somebody out here. I was just excited and I was excited to see my brother.
I apologize. There's a delay. When you break up, I think I've got a break to speak. So I apologize for speaking over you. But yeah, I'm hearing you that you're excited to
Oh
have
yeah, no.
actual family. You had your sister, but what I was thinking is that the process of going through the foster care system basically de-identifies those people from you, right? It's an intentional separation that ends up turning them into shadows versus being real
Literally.
people like you and I can see us here. So to have them back, I could see how that would be incredibly exciting. Wow. So what
Yeah,
was
it
your
was
first meeting like with your brother?
I was he was the heart of it all for me. Like I thought about her my whole life, but it was mainly my brother, my baby brother Ryan that I just and I like that's who he was to me. Like I had his baby picture for forever. I used to sleep with it. I never let that picture go.
Wow.
And the funny thing is I always thought he was white because this baby picture. So when I met him, this black man, and I was like, well, at the time he was a teenager still, actually, this young black kid, and I said, oh my gosh, like you're so handsome, we look alike, and we became instant best friends.
That's
That was my baby
amazing.
brother. It was
Yeah.
amazing. However, she destroyed that.
Oh, well, before you get to that, how about your
Yeah.
meeting with her? How was that
Oh,
re
yeah, so the
reconnect?
meeting was great. It was wonderful. I thought she filled it. We had so many questions, obviously, lots of hugs, lots of tears. I told her about the memories that I first started this interview off with because I was desperate to find out if those were real memories. And she started crying and went and said she had to make a phone call. So I said, sure. And I felt bad. I was like, I said something awful, and she's going to leave and not come back.
Mhm.
But she did. And I said, I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to upset you. And she said, no. She said, I'm just so surprised that you can remember that.
Mhm.
And I said, well, yeah, and she said, I've called someone to come and speak with you. Like, she's going to come and speak with us. And I said, who? And she said, it's somebody that I named you as your godmother. And she was around all the time. And she is, so there's another memory that I didn't start off with to say because it's so emotional for me. And I think I'm okay to say it now. But yeah, my mom used to be behind plazas all the time. And there would be all kinds of men behind these plazas. And I remember a guy reaching out for like our faces towards mine and my sisters to be like, oh, they're so cute. Like they're so cute. And I remember this woman there smacked his hand away and said, don't effing touch them ever again. And so I said to my mom, who was that lady? And so that's the lady she went and called.
My gosh. Wow. Your
So when I'm
godmother
telling this,
protecting you in that
yeah,
crazy
yeah.
situation. Wow.
So
Mm.
yeah, we met her and she came down and she was, I think now looking back, more excited and emotional and just connected to the situation than our biological mom was.
Mm.
But I mean, we wouldn't have noticed that then being in the moment, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so then it went on to one of those things that we're having the relationship, we're a couple years in, and I have some expectations, right? Like, you're my mom, like you haven't been there, I have children, like where do we go from here, you know? And so I started trying to have like my kids go and spend time with her, and she just was incapable. The want and the desire was not there. If, in fact, she was irritated by it.
Really? What does
Yeah,
that look like, being irritated by it? What do you mean?
so my son has a nut allergy. My oldest son has a peanut and tree nut allergy. He has an EpiPen, and she has all these kinds of nuts and cashews and stuff all over her table. And I said, oh, these got to go in the cupboard. My son's got an allergy, you know? And she says, well, this is my home. And I said, okay, well, like he could die, you know, if he gets a hold of this. And she was like, well, we'll just have to keep him out of the kitchen. And mind you, my son's like 3 years old at this time.
Yeah.
You live in a tiny apartment. Like, it's, how are we going to? So then there was just a lot of other things that happened. You know, I went to jail. My sister bailed me out and made me go live with my mom, right? And that was a nightmare. I had to go live with my birth mom as an
Mm.
adult.
Yeah, that must have been really tough.
But like the reunification part of it, I think the novelty of it for her at first, because remember, like she didn't tell anybody that she had these two girls. Like she had to go and tell people that she
Oh,
had these
really?
two daughters. Yeah, everybody only
Wow.
knew her as having a son. She essentially had to go and tell this new group of people that she's around and made a life around, that she has these two daughters that were apprehended. Not that she relinquished, she apprehended.
They were apprehended, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's phenomenal.
she had to tell this story. And then, of course, it's bringing up past for her. And now people are having questions. And like the lies are, we didn't realize we were being lied to, but essentially, like that's literally what it was. It was a bed of lies that she made from the moment that we met.
Oh, really?
Oh,
So
everything was a lie.
so she had, it sounds like she had gotten out of prostitution and found perhaps a more positive circle of people, but they didn't know about her past, nor you and your sister.
Right.
And now, in having to admit that you exist, I would imagine she wasn't willing to tell them about her past. So there were lies over on that side, but she was lying to you too?
Yeah. So we were told that because we want to know, like, why were we taken? Why did you give us up? Why were we taken? Because we didn't know that we were apprehended. So, and she said that she had Black kids and that her family was racist and they kicked her out.
So you had not seen your redacted file yet to know the truth.
Right.
So you're in reunion with her. She's telling you that your removal was racially motivated based on her family. But now when you actually go and get your files, you see that that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
Wow.
So her mom had actually passed away before I was born, my grandmother. And then my grandfather, who loved me very much, passed away of what they believe was a broken heart
Really?
9 months after my grandmother. Yeah.
Oh, this poor guy.
But he loved me very much.
Yeah, that's good to know. Wow. So you said that your mother broke up your relationship with your brother. Why?
So, I mean, she essentially did it with my sister too. Like my sister and I have been through very tumultuous relationship, right? Like separation, put back together, separation, put back together. But I am the fair-skinned one out of my birth mom's children, and I believe as an adult, she still took that out on me. She
Mm.
didn't like me for that. She didn't like how I looked. She hated me essentially. And I became to find that out when I lived with her. I reminded her of my father, and she resented that my brother and I were so close. I think she wanted to hurt me, and essentially she would, because he was raised with her, it seemed like she would like get at him because he was still like a teenager
Mhm.
essentially.
And you guys were close.
Yeah, we got very close instantly. It's like we were not even apart.
So you and he got close, but she still has disdain for you. So that didn't sit well with her.
Right. And I'm the type of person, so I'm autistic and I have a couple other superpowers, but I was diagnosed as a child, however, with like other disabilities, but unfortunately they were not told to me because back then it was seen as an embarrassing thing to have.
Mhm.
Like
There
it
was
was,
stigma.
yeah, stigma, yeah. So, but I've always been a very articulate person,
Mhm.
very things have to make sense for me and I have to talk about it, right? And if things don't make sense, I'm going to say that it doesn't make sense, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm just that type of person. So I think she resented that because she hid a lot from him and because things were being explained to me and my sister and like we would be other parts of like the city and like visiting people and they would be asking questions so then she would be telling the story again and then I would be hearing it so often that I started to realize that the story is not the same and I'm like, well, that's not what you said before and this is confusing because if that was this then this, it just was like it's so everything just that I had spent so much time making sense of was actually still this mumbo jumbo that made absolutely no sense and I still had no idea of where the hell I came from or who am I.
Neshia and her birth mother broke ties years ago as Neshia uncovered what kind of person she was dealing with, who would drive wedges between her children, have animosity toward Neshia for being so fair skinned, and as Neshia called out how incongruity in the woman's lies showed her true colors. When Nisha said her birth mother didn't like how she looked because she was hoping Nisha would have a darker complexion, it hit me that her birth mother is a white woman. So the very thing that she doesn't like about her daughter is one of the main characteristics the woman contributed to Nisha's beautiful mixed race looks. Nisha said their relationship had fallen apart well before she got access to those 6,000 pages of police and social work reports that outlined the truth of her life. But once she poured through the pages and all of the dark, heinous lies were exposed, she knew it was over. They have not spoken to one another in over 10 years.
And we will never speak again. I just didn't like her. I went from loving her to like not liking her at all. And it's funny because as a child, it was the exact same thing. I loved her obviously when I was born, but once I got into toddler years, I didn't like her. And I
Mm-hmm.
read about that in my file, right? I read that. I did not want to go to visits with her. I did not like her. I could not stand to be around her. I wanted no parts of her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just strange. Like the pieces of my life have essentially repeated itself.
There's cycles.
Yes.
Nisha's birth father was a sensitive person for her to discuss. She said when she found her birth mother, she immediately asked for the man's identity, and her birth mother revealed him. The man, a black police officer, was told that Neshia was not his child. When she set out to find him, things did not go well. Her search initially uncovered that she had a paternal brother, but with more digging, Neshia learned her sibling had been murdered. Neshia was able to contact the young man's mother, another woman the police officer had been with, who reached out to the man to implore him to talk to Neshia. She pointed out that this young woman with children of her own needed to hear from her father at least once.
And he's just lied, right? Like he just cannot bring himself to meet me at all. Like we've met, we've seen each other. Like my brother that was murdered, his son and I are very close. My youngest son and my brother who was murdered, his son, they literally look like twins. My brother and I look like twins. So I think that there's a lot maybe for my dad looking at me. I think maybe he sees his son a lot. I think there's a lot of factors for him. I mean, it is frustrating always putting people ahead of you and like their feelings and like what's difficult for them because I deserve this. I believe it's imperative to who I am and my being of being here. Like, I don't know that I'll ever get that from him. He has made so many promises to me. The last time I saw him, we were standing on my brother's grave, and he was apologizing to me for always putting me on the back burner. And he promised that we would talk, and he just keeps promising that. And we've had talks, but never fully like sat down and like discussed anything.
Mm-hmm.
I found out he had another son a few years ago. And so I did reach out to the boy's mom and just to make sure, like, you know, it was okay if I reach out to my brother, and which she was okay with that. She also reached out to Colin to like talk to him about the situation, and he was like, I don't know what to say, that kind of stuff. But I have a bunch of siblings, and then I have siblings from my mom's side. And I will say that going through that redacted file, I ended up finding out that she, in fact, had another child that she gave up.
Really? Oh my gosh.
I just
And
found
have
that out like 6 months ago.
really?
Yeah,
And
so
do
I
you
thought
intend to try to find this child too?
oh, you know I am. I have to. Like I found everyone, right? I've literally found everyone. I will not be able to rest without finding, well, they're not a child anymore. They're definitely in their 30s. I'll be 40 in March. So it's in true fashion of my birth mom to have a child. Like Irish twins must have been her thing.
Oh my gosh. I wish you the absolute best of luck in finding this person because
Thank you so much. I'm it should be a little bit easier now that I'm older. I've been in therapy for so many years, and I don't think I'll ever leave therapy, but it's helped
yeah.
so much.
Among Nisha's final words, she encouraged everyone listening to seek out therapy and keep trying to locate a therapist that works for you. They're out there, and when she found hers, it was one of the best things she's ever encountered. Neshia is sleeping better through the night, and she feels better about life in general. And the irony of her current therapeutic relationship is Nisha's therapist is an adoptive mother. Reflecting on all that Neshia has endured, early childhood trauma, tumultuous teen and young adult years, and the lies and gaslighting from her birth parents, with only a fleeting glimpse of what family should be and could be in foster care, she has almost exclusively seen some of the worst examples of what a parent should be. I was intrigued about Nisha's parenting philosophy with her own children. Listen to how she expresses deep love and pride for all of her children, while admitting that after all she has survived, Neshia has likely been a challenging mother to live with.
Thank you so much for asking me that. I will say that I am far from a perfect mom. I love my children very, very much. They are the most important thing in my life. I will forever show up and cheer for my children. However, I would assume that for especially my older sons, that it was extremely difficult having me as their mother, given everything that I had to endure and work out and solve on my own. I'm still not fully there in the sense of like regulating my emotions, processing, and not feeling afraid. A lot, my oldest son and I will say we don't have the greatest relationship right now. It's heartbreaking for me, but I do understand. He'll be 21 years old at the end of November, and he's doing amazing. He's a business owner. He is a member of this community. He gives back to his community. He's a football coach for his old high school. He has a steady girlfriend. My second son just graduated. Both my sons graduated Ontario scholars on the honor roll.
Wow.
My second son writes music. I call him my golden child because he is the child that never gave me any problems at all. And he is just the sweetest, kindest soul. And then I have my daughter. She's just turned 8 years old, and parenting her has been very hard, especially at the age that she's at right now. I don't let her go anywhere. She's always with me, very protective of her, overly protective almost. I need to make sure that I try not to do that too much so that what happened with the older one doesn't happen again. I essentially kept him too close to me, and it was too much for him.
Yeah.
It actually pushed him away. But I love him. I go to his work and I watch him from the window, and I just leave him be because I know that this time right now he's finding himself as a man, and I don't want to cause any kind of trauma for
Yeah.
him. Sad because I essentially like became a part of dishing out the trauma,
Yeah.
and I'm currently dealing with that in therapy. That's been the focal point for me because I didn't know how to be a mom, right? I didn't know anything. And I didn't even know how to like be a normal person. Social cues, stuff like that. It was very difficult for me. And
Yeah.
it essentially was extremely difficult for them being children.
I can
My
imagine.
younger ones, there's 10 years age gap between them pretty much. So the younger ones, they get a little bit more patience. There's more like I ask myself like what do I need in this moment when I'm trying to regulate? What does the little girl in me need?
Yeah.
So that I don't unleash the trauma on the younger ones. The
Yeah.
damage has been done with the older ones. The sense that I can only be so remorseful for that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But and hope that the oldest one comes back to me. But the rest of us have very good relationship. And I will say that even though like we are estranged right now, like we do love each other very, very much.
That's good. He'll come back. And I want you to hold on to that, because on some level, I suspect he understands that you did the best you could with what you had and what you were given. It's two things: what you have and what you were given, and you were not given really anything. So I suspect it, you've described this man as an intelligent guy,
Yeah.
successful. He's doing the thing, and he's mulling over these things, whether you know it or not.
He's
And
breaking generational curses.
right. And
I'm so
to a degree, like, you have to let him do that too.
exactly.
For his kids to be healthy and all of that other stuff, it fucking sucks, but you may have to let him have this space for now so that he can establish himself in a really healthy way, and then come back to you. Because the same way that you were separated for years from your mother, you went back and found her, he too will want to come back and reconnect with you. And
Wow, thank you so much for that. I never ever thought
absolutely,
of it in that perspective.
absolutely.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Like, I'm gonna hold that to me. Thank you so much.
He's not gone forever. It's just for now. He needs to find himself, get himself to a healthy place, reconcile with what you have been through that made you how you were as a parent to him. And then when he's got the strength to go back, he'll do it.
Yeah. It's crazy how, again, it's like another one of those things, right? That it's like the repetitiveness, like the cycles. Like, I went through the hardest time of my life with my son, and it's like it's happening again 20 years later.
Yeah.
It's like the same hardest place is with him. And this time I have to let him go.
Yeah.
Like, before I couldn't, like, it was trying to get him back, right? But now and I have had to accept that.
Yeah.
It's been very hard, but I love him enough so much to do that.
Mm-hmm. That is incredible that you love him enough
To
so
let
much
him go.
that you know you have to let him go in order for him to find himself and come back, and he will. Trust in that. You did it. He will do it too. We all do it. That's what the show
Right?
is about. Everybody on the show is talking about trying to find their birth. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So if you don't take
Exactly.
anything else from every single episode on the show, this is the
Exactly.
theme of the show, is trying to find your mom.
Absolutely.
So that should also give you solace, not just my words, but I've created a whole platform of people talking about this very
You
thing.
guys
He will be
all
back.
have. You guys are my tribe, honestly. Like, I will say that, like, yeah, finding these podcasts were, and I'm not a podcast girly by any means, but I am now. And I've listened to every single episode.
I'm so glad.
I am just so, it has actually opened my eyes for work that I want to do in the community, things that I've started. It's given so many different perspectives. Like, it's just, I love what you're doing so much. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and soul,
Oh my gosh.
just for bringing me this, and all of us, but this peace that you have brought me, that I could never have even gotten through therapy. I would have never ever received this through therapy. So I just want to say I appreciate you, and I see you, and I know that it's probably not easy sitting there and listening to all of this. This has got to be a lot for you to carry as well, right? So thank you for seeing us,
Oh my gosh. Wow.
creating a platform for us. Like, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I don't know that I would have been able to survive receiving that redacted file without this podcast.
Thank you.
I truly mean that. So thank you.
You have overwhelmingly validated what I wanted to do from the very first day I started this. I said, if I touch one person ever, it will have been worth it. And
You've changed my life. You've truly changed my life. You, Sarah, and Louise have changed my life.
I'm so glad.
Fireside Adoptees has changed my life.
I'm really glad.
So grateful.
Thank you.
And like, I wish all the amazing things in this life for you and your family.
Me back to you too. I was sitting here the whole time. I'm
you.
thinking, God, I just wish I could give her a big hug.
Oh, I
Tell her
can
this
feel
is
you
going
from
to
here,
be
my
okay.
brother. I can feel you from
I
here.
love it. Thank you. Thank you.
It was so nice to talk with you. Sorry
too.
to shed all of this on a Sunday.
That's okay. Listen, I got you for a Sunday. You got it every single fucking day.
Yeah,
So,
you know.
like, I'm
You
fine.
know what's always my kids? Like, I'm looking through my window right now and the sun is shining. We're gonna go to the park. We're gonna go. I'm actually working with a 15-year-old right now who is essentially like me. She's in foster care right now, and I'm working to have her come and live with me.
Oh, yeah.
We have a bunch of challenges we're working through. I love her just like she's my own. And yeah, it's amazing. So I'm gonna be going to pick her up. She's been messaging me. And
Good.
I'm on here talking to you. And yeah, we're gonna have a family day.
I love that.
You know, like
that. I love that
it's
you're
been shitty.
turning.
It's been fucking shitty, Damon. But I see the light. Like, I see glimmers of light, like, everywhere.
There it was. I love it. I'm so glad. There's so much strength and unfortunate but wisdom in you that came from all of this adversity. I can feel it. And it feels just what you told me right there. I can feel there's a next chapter that's coming that's going to be super powerful, and I'm super excited for you for it, Neshia. So
thank you so much. I'll definitely reach out to you and let you know. And
please do.
I will for sure. I will for sure. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm just so honored to be on here with you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Truly my pleasure. You take care, okay?
You too, Damon.
All right. All the best. Bye-bye. Hey, it's me. Neshia endured some of the worst of what a child could be exposed to from her earliest days of life. She survived the dark underbelly of her mother's street life and was exposed to the quintessential abuses of adoption that we all hope every child placed will be prevented from living through. Neshia has lived the heartbreak of opening the door to adoption reunion with her birth parents, but both have been disappointments, hurtful with lies and false promises, leaving the little girl they made together without relationships with either person. But what I absolutely loved was hearing the glimmers of hope Neshia has experienced in life, seeing what childhood is supposed to be like with her foster family, feeling the deep love for her children through her traumas, finding an adoption-competent therapist to help her navigate life, and even supporting another young woman who needs Neshia the way the little girl inside her needed loving adults long ago. I'm Damon Davis, and I hope you found something in Neshia's journey that inspired you, validates your feelings about wanting to search, or motivates you to have the strength along your journey to learn, who am I really?